So a new war front has opened in West Asia this week, while Washington is unleashing its lethal weapons on the Houthis. The Yemeni group has promised to expand its strikes to block the Israeli navigation and also to attack US warships in the region. Which side will halt its fire first, and will it be the US or will it be the Houthis? Take a look.
Strikes, counter-strikes, and strike again. The battles are rapidly scaling up in a new war front in West Asia. The US is relentlessly bombing targets held by Yemen's Houthis, even as President Donald Trump pledges to completely annihilate them. The Houthis are not backing down, announcing plans to expand their operations and blockade Israel's navigation systems.
The operations of the armed forces in support of Gaza will not stop, no matter how long the American aggression continues. And these operations, in addition to the blockade of Israeli navigation, will continue until the aggression on Gaza is stopped and the siege on it is lifted.
The deadly battles started last Sunday when the Yemen group said it attacked U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman and its warships with ballistic missiles and drones. Washington denied the claim. Soon after, the U.S. military unleashed its firepower, missiles screaming into the night sky, and F-A-18 Hornets striking Houthi strongholds in Yemen. The targets included the Hodeidah Governorate on the Red Sea and Sada in the north, claiming several lives. These crimes and this barbaric bombing of civilian establishments in these densely populated neighborhoods, targeting peaceful citizens in their homes, came treacherously and without warning while they were having their iftar meal after a day of fasting. Trump says Iran will be held responsible for every shot fired by the Houthis. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, came out in support of Yemen.
The events in Yemen are the same. This attack on the people of Yemen, on Yemeni civilians, is also a crime that must be stopped.
Washington has promised to launch its most lethal weapons on the Houthis.
We will use overwhelming lethal force until we have achieved our objective.
U.S. showcased its killer weapon system, AGR-20 Falco, that shot down a Houthi drone. While U.S. deadly strikes on Houthi strongholds have devastated neighborhoods, Houthis says its homemade Palestine, two Type missiles struck U.S. warships and Israel's Ben Gurion airport. But even as the U.S. president blames Iran for aiding the Houthis, Trump's special envoy says the issue can be resolved through diplomacy. With neither U.S. nor the Houthis holding back the fire, it remains to be seen who will initiate the path to peace and when the attacks will stop.
All right, now to give us more perspective on this broadcast, we are joined by Mr. Peter Kuznick, who is the Professor of History and Director of Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Professor Kuznick, this campaign that the Americans have unleashed of trying to bomb Houthi targets in Yemen, it's gone on for almost about a week. There's no comparison in the power calculus of these two sides. The Americans are obviously the world's superpower, and the Houthis rely on what is effectively what the Iranians can spare. How much of a resistance do you think the Houthis can in fact put up against this wave of bombardment that the Americans have carried out?
Well, as you say, it's a David versus Goliath scenario, and the Houthis are in no position to challenge the United States militarily. But they don't need to challenge the United States militarily to succeed in this. What they need to do is disrupt the shipping in the Red Sea, which they can do with a much weaker force. And they're also lobbing missiles into Israel. So they're threatening the USS Harry Truman. They're threatening the Israelis, and they can do that with a much weaker force than they're facing. You have to remember that they were at war for years with Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis were not able to subdue them, and they took more and more land and territory and control and political power inside Yemen. So it's not the same calculus for success and failure as it would be if it was two armies fighting against each other on an equal terrain.
Interesting. Now, the United States has made it quite clear that the Houthis are backed by the Iranians, and it is Iran that is pulling the levers of what the Houthis are saying. Is there an attempt by attacking the Houthis to try and draw in the Iranians, which could potentially spark off a much larger regional war? Do you think the possibility of the Iranians getting involved in Yemen and also in Gaza is very real?
Trump has said that the Iranians are responsible for what the Houthis are doing. Most experts believe that the Houthis act independently. The Iranian leadership has insisted that the Houthis are sovereign and independent. So this is more of a pretext by Trump, an excuse for going after Iran. And that's the real danger here. We know that Netanyahu and the extremist government in Israel has wanted to destroy Iran's nuclear sites. But the Iranian nuclear sites are underground and hardened, and so it's not clear that the Israelis have the capability, without using nuclear weapons, of destroying the Iran nuclear facilities. And Iran gets closer and closer to a nuclear weapon. And so the pressure is mounting. There is much concern inside the United States and globally that the real end game here is for a U.S. strike against Iran directly. That's what the Israelis have been wanting, and that's the real danger in this situation. There's even speculation that the U.S. could use nuclear weapons in such an attack. We don't know that, and the reports that I've seen so far do not have hard evidence that that is what is being planned, but we know that is one of the options. So this whole thing began to unravel with Trump's pulling the U.S. out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, and when the JCPOA was working very, very effectively. And Iran was a year away from developing a nuclear weapon, if they intended to do so. And we don't have evidence that they have in recent years. But now they're weeks or at most months away from developing a nuclear weapon. And if they get attacked by Israel directly in a serious attack, or by the United States, it's almost certain that they will develop nuclear weapons. And then the madness begins. Then Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey, they all are going to develop nuclear weapons. We are on the verge of nuclear anarchy, which is why we better find a different way to resolve these tensions. But the Houthis say, as long as the humanitarian aid into Gaza is not restored, they're going to continue these strikes.
All right. We'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Kuznick, for joining us with that perspective there. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.